The national news has been a lot lately. So whether you're dialing in or tuning out, today on CityCast Las Vegas, we've got a roundup of the things you need to know about what's happening locally. I'm here with Nevada Current editor April Corbin-Gurnis and writer Scott Dickensheets, and we're talking about Nevada's senators and their moderate stance on a new ICE funding bill, what CCSD's new school start times mean for the Valley, and spheres everywhere. Are we jealous? It's Friday, January 23rd. I'm Sonia Cho Swanson, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Scott, April, good morning. Welcome.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you guys.
Yes, we're going to start off with our hot headline, as we do. Anyone want to try to jump in with a guttural?
Where's Sarah when we need her?
I know, we can't do it. Scott, what's your best hot headline impression?
It's hot headline time. I don't know.
Thank you. I love that. All right. Well, y'all may have seen the news. CCSD students walked out in protest of ICE on Wednesday morning. One student actually at Desert Rose High School was hit by a car. They apparently stepped off the road into traffic. They had non-life-threatening injuries, thank goodness. CCSD released a statement that they encourage students to be active participants in democracy by taking the time to, quote, research important issues and express their opinions civilly and peacefully. Nonetheless, they will be marked absent. So all power to the teens, but also, weigh the consequences, right?
Sounds like the kids are all right.
Sounds like the kids are all right.
Stay on the sidewalk. Watch out for them cars.
Please. But on to our first topic of the morning. Speaking of ICE, our senators have something to say about a new ICE funding bill. What's going on with that, April?
All right. So Senators Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen introduced a bill to redirect $75 billion of previously approved ICE funding to local law enforcement. So for context, last summer with the big, beautiful bill, $175 billion of funding was approved for ICE. That's billion with a B.
Billion.
Billion.
Yeah.
So Cortez Masto, in a statement this week, said that rather than giving ICE that full amount, they should redirect $75 billion to local law enforcement to hire local police officers who, and I quote, are trained to fight crime in a way that earns community trust. So Cortez, Masto, and Rosen's calls come, of course, following the fatal shooting of Renee Good by ICE officers in Minneapolis. And of course, it is worth noting that Democrats do not control the Senate or the House or the White House. So don't hold your breath for this proposal to go anywhere. So as the Nevada Current points out in its article on this effort, recent polling shows that there's growing support for abolishing ICE. But that comes also with warnings from centrist groups like the Searchlight Institute that Democrats should avoid a trap of being accused of wanting to defund ICE.
Interesting. Well, that's interesting, too, because I think a lot of local police departments have signed these 287G agreements, right? Which kind of deputize them to act on ICE's behalf. So even if we are, I guess, shunting funds from this ICE package to local law enforcement, does it really change the outcomes in many cases? I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Well, I think obviously the Democrats are worried about being, burned again the way they were with defund the police, which as a slogan sort of oversimplified a very complex issue, and they're afraid of doing that again. But defund ICE is a much different thing than the police, because when you say defund the police, it sounds like you're saying nobody's going to come help you when the burglars are climbing into your house. Right. ICE does not serve that function. So I think there might be a little more
calling on ICE. There's no pod patrol version of ICE. We don't
right.
We don't idolize ICE.
Right. So that might have a bit less sort of anti-effect on some of the public.
Sure. But as you pointed out, April, I think what's interesting is that, the GOP still controls Congress, right? The bill has been passed. I'm curious, is this the harm reduction solution that our country needs right now? Should more Dems follow suit?
I don't know. I mean, that's certainly a question that the Democrats are grappling with right now. And you've seen some Democrats that are on the progressive side say that they outright will not vote for any funding bills that include additional funding for ICE. So there's, more appropriations bills that are being discussed before the end of this month. So they've taken that stance. But it's everybody's grappling with it in very different ways. And obviously, we've seen that Cortez Masto and Rosen both are pretty in the middle on such things. So it's not surprising that their stance is, we don't like ICE, but you know who we really love? Local police.
Right.
Well, and neither one of them is shy about celebrating their bipartisan bona fides. But we're in an era now where I think it was this week or last week, an ICE memo came to the surface from May, which basically said ICE doesn't feel like it needs a warrant to enter your home anymore. And if that's the political context, I mean, I think a lot of people might be justified or feel justified in criticizing this more moderate route that some of the centrist Dems are taking, because it seems like that's a small gesture in what is a very large and, for many people, very frightening situation.
Sure. I think it kind of boils down to, I mean, this is like a Biden quote, and take what you will from that, but he's often said, or he said before, that politics is the, quote, art of the possible, right? And so what even is possible in this moment, in this era? I mean, we can rail all we want against, ICE and their kind of constitution wrecking behaviors, right? But at the end of the day, maybe the Rosen Cortez Masto route is the best path forward. Maybe that's, like I said, harm reduction, right? Does bipartisanship breed more bipartisanship? If they kind of are permitted to, act in moderate ways and break from party lines, does that give more Republicans permission to do the same?
Maybe. You certainly need them. Certainly, at least they're on the right side of things. If you're a Democrat and you're looking at it that way, there's going to be the people that push it the furthest, but you need the people in the middle to at least be down with getting rid of some of their money or something. So in a world where, Democrats, including the ones we're talking about, have, gone across the aisle to vote to reopen the government when there's a huge healthcare debate, at least it seems that they are sort of solidly on the side of not being okay with the tactics and optics that we've seen from ICE.
And I think another question that raises itself in this issue on the other side of the coin is, if we give more money to police departments, are they just going to, I mean, so many of them have militarized themselves.
Sure.
It's true, too.
And so are we just going to be sort of augmenting that process, as opposed to what Cortez Masto and Rosen sort of characterize as more community-based policing? I think it's just as likely that they'll buy more tanks or armored cars and more assault rifles or whatever that, are the sort of quasi-military gear that they're already loaded up on.
More Cybertrucks?
More Cybertrucks.
I feel safer already.
Well, let's move on to our next topic. CCSD has shifted their morning start times for the 2026-2027 school year. Scott, what's going on with that?
Well, this has been in the works, been proposed for a while. And, hundreds of other school districts around the country have done this. So they're going to shift their start times later for elementary schools and high schools. And then slightly earlier for middle schools. So for high schools, which currently open around 7, give or take, local variations, they'll be opening around 8:30.
You mean first period is going to start?
Yeah. They'll start at 8:30.
Oh my God, high school me would have loved this.
Right?
Yeah.
Elementary schools will start about 15 minutes later, around 9:15. And then middle schools will go from currently 8 a.m.-ish to 7:30.
Huh. Okay.
And the idea is to get high school kids into classrooms more refreshed and ready to learn. And there's a huge body of research that supports this. Science is on the side of this. Kids, when they hit puberty, their circadian rhythms change. And they have a harder time going to sleep earlier and waking up earlier. And I know Americans prefer to make policy based on YouTube videos, but there's actually, the science is kind of overwhelming on this. And it has all kinds of benefits to the kids, to the teachers, to the community at large. So it's been tried before, proposed before, and in 2023 was the last time I think it was seriously talked about at the state education board level. This local school district was against it, and they, in fact, threatened to sue if they tried to implement it at the state level.
Why were they against it?
Because they felt that operationally it would be too expensive. Clark County School District operates, I believe, the largest school district-owned bus fleet in the country.
Wow.
And 31,000 stops a day. So that's why the current times are staggered like they are to help make the bus schedules work without adding hundreds of millions of dollars worth of buses and drivers.
Oh my gosh, it's a huge logistics puzzle. That's fascinating.
It is. But I think they've solved that mostly with this new schedule. So.
Okay, interesting. So I'm just curious what y'all think. What effects do later start times for students, or for high schoolers anyways, have on the whole community?
The most common reaction I think we've seen from the public is, I don't know if the right word is concern, but people concerned that high schoolers will not be able to get to their after-school jobs as soon as possible, which for a lot of families could impact their bottom line. There are a fair amount of teenagers who are working jobs and helping their families pay their bills and all of those things. So pushing them back an hour will impact them and their ability to do that. We've heard some of that. There's also been concern about some high schoolers won't be able to pick up their younger siblings, or just sort of the inner workings of individual families will obviously have to shift. That's, a big deal for individuals on a family level. Those are the ones I've seen the most in terms of people giving feedback and sort of shouting about it on the internet.
But there have been kids interviewed in the media who said they support this because they're tired of being fatigued from the get-go in the mornings, at the mercy of biological forces they can't control. So that's one upside. And obviously, there are predicted improvements in academic outcomes, mental and physical health, behavioral issues. All of these things are predicted to improve based on this new schedule and the later sleep times that the kids get. So that's a social good. I mean, if more healthy kids getting better outcomes from the schools, that's a good. That's a community-wide good. But also there are pragmatic advantages, like fewer car wrecks.
I was going to say, yeah. Scott, I have a confession. Well, I was not a morning or an early bird when I was in high school. And there were a few times when I was probably pushing the gas pedal a little too heavy on my way to high school in the morning down Spring Mountain Road.
I do worry about middle schoolers going that early, especially depending on how bright it is, because I feel like middle schoolers are already the age population who got hit by cars.
Oh my God,
not
so
driving,
true.
but in terms of walking across crosswalks.
And we've seen so many increased accidents lately around school districts.
Yeah, so it's pretty dark in the morning.
Yeah.
They're going to be dealing with the tired drivers and all of that, and they're already vulnerable. But I mean, there's always going to be winners and losers, right? I mean, there's always going to be some trade-off. And I think Scott's right that the overwhelming scientific evidence is that this will be a good change, but there'll certainly be an adjustment period, even just as average people who don't have kids and don't have to worry about getting to school, them having to adjust to when their neighborhood school has their school zones in effect and all of those things. Those are all things we're going to have to watch in the next school year, for sure.
But on the macro level, the RAND Corporation did a study that suggested if this was a nationwide policy of these later start times, there would be billions of dollars of annual economic benefit because of the improved school performance, leading to better jobs, leading to all this. I mean, it's a lot of voodoo math, but there is some indication there's a larger economic good to it. And certainly teachers would benefit as well. And you want teachers who are not fatigued and exhausted from the get-go. And there was a study that's been reported, not published, so keep that in mind, but it's been reported on, where the researchers put teachers through several rounds of task-making decisions. And by the fifth round, sleep-deprived teachers were scoring on the test almost at the same level of early-onset dementia patients.
Whoa.
Now, again, not published, so that's somewhat, may be up to question, but it does suggest that the people we put in charge of our kids' education would benefit as much from this policy as the kids themselves.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so poor middle school teachers and yay for the high school teachers. So how does this change or reflect on Superintendent Ebert's goals? I mean, she just stepped into office last year and she came in with some ambitious plans. Does this reflect sort of her new stance and her big goals for the district?
However you feel about the changes, I think you have to give Joan Ebert some credit for going for it. Like, people have been talking about this for years. The science has been out there for decades, years. You know, it's a big, huge change. It's a huge undertaking, and it's going to make everybody mad. You know, they did surveys,
right?
And the surveys were clear. Everybody agreed that later start times would help, but nobody wanted them to happen because it would impact their individual lives in a way that is annoying. And, you know, I think she had to look at the macro level. She was a fan of this when she was superintendent of the state. And then obviously she moved to CCSD. So she took that with her. She's bringing that energy. And I think you have to give her credit for trying something that's big and bold and maybe will pay off. And I think that, you know, at least big change is something that the Vegas community has begged for within CCSD. So I think you have to give her credit for that, regardless of whether or not it could be her undoing if it all goes south, you know, if everybody hates it and there's massive problems that we haven't predicted. But I think you have to give her credit for trying something in a school district that desperately needs some kind of change and some improvements.
And is big and unwieldy and so many moving parts. And
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think she understands that after a year, everybody will have adjusted. People will have fixed their schedules, will have learned the workarounds and all of that. And hopefully the payoff is in higher test scores, better achievements, and all of those things by which we measure the school district and its performance. So I think it's a calculated risk on her part, but in the end, I think it'll probably be, you know, it won't be her undoing, I doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, given some of the spectacular bad behavior of previous superintendents, she has a pretty low bar. So
that's fair. But I will say, as a parent with 3 children that I have to cart around in the morning, I'm terrified of what's going to happen. I don't know what it'll look like yet. For anybody who's not aware, or for parents who are worried about that, they have said that individual schools will release their start times and their end times and what shifts are occurring there probably in April. So we have to sort of wait until then to figure out whether or not we need to adjust our own schedules.
Okay.
So stay tuned, parents.
Let's go into our third topic, because I was surprised, maybe a little surprised anyways, to see that a second sphere is landing in National Harbor, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. It is I will call it like, maybe not quite like a mini sphere, more like a mid-sized sphere. Our Vegas sphere has 18,000 seats roughly. This sphere, proposed sphere.
Inferior sphere.
Yes, exactly. Inferior sphere, which, by the way, I said it's landing. It is proposed in National Harbor, Maryland. We'll have about 6,000 seats.
Boo.
It is being eagerly backed by the Maryland Governor, Wes Moore. There is another sphere planned for Abu Dhabi, so it is technically maybe like the third sphere, but it is the second sphere in the U.S. And I don't know if y'all remember, but in 2024, there was a proposal for a sphere in London. And that plan was quickly nixed. The nearby residents were furious about the prospect of having bright lights flashing through their windows and noises and sounds and all that. However, unlike London, this sphere in the DC suburb is going to be located in kind of more of a business, tourist, kind of like mixed use kind of district. There's actually an MGM casino, shopping, and I think some shopping outlets or something there. So a little bit less residential, maybe a little bit more amenable to a sphere of any size. And there is no time frame yet. However, the Maryland General Assembly will be holding hearings for their proposed 2027 budget soon. And that budget includes $10 million for the sphere, which will cost much more than that, but it will be a public-private partnership. So yeah, how are we feeling about the existence of more spheres in the world? Does it cheapen our sphere or does it kind of expand its influence?
I don't like it.
Oh, okay.
I think we should boycott it. I think we should lobby against it.
All of our
the US
many
sphere.
planned trips to National Harbor, Maryland are just going to get canceled.
You know?
Well, I do think that the D.C. area could use a giant eyeball staring at it fairly often. I think that would be a good thing.
The political statements?
At least on the metaphorical level. I think it cuts into, I think, maybe the specialness of the Vegas sphere a little bit.
Okay.
Just because in the same way that a casino in Maryland would cut into the Vegas specialness a little bit. It would obviously a smaller spectacle. The revenue potential of a 1/3 size sphere is probably less than the big sphere. So they might not be able to mount some of the giant spectacles that we do. But I'm with April. I don't like it.
No. I don't like it. I feel like it's different. Like Abu Dhabi, that's a different vibe entirely. That's a different, they're
different country.
That area is full of spectacle and you know what I mean? Like they're
architectural
I'm assuming
wonders.
It's not in a residential area there or whatever. You know what I mean? So I mean, I feel like that fits into they have crazy it fits in there. And it's changed the skyline and landscape here. Maryland, come on, get out of here. No. I'm so offended by it. Like I can't tell you I don't like it. No.
It seems weirdly anomalous for Maryland.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
seems like a cheap bauble.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't quite fit in with the landscape of serenity and austerity. I don't know. Is that even words you can apply to our nation's capital anymore? But so here's a question for y'all. Trump has already placed himself at the helm of the Kennedy Center. What would happen if he was also overseeing DC's sphere programming? What kind of shows would we see at the DC/Maryland sphere?
Oh, I think a very long Lee Greenwood residency would. Oh God! And I don't know if I was touring the Capitol or the D.C. area and saw a giant Lee Greenwood on the outside of the sphere, if I would be happy about that. But otherwise, I think it would probably also, on the outside anyway, display a lot of cheesy gold leaf too. So that would be my prediction. Yeah.
I mean, we're also talking about a president who's down with having UFC fights at the White House. So I imagine cage fighting at the mini-sphere.
Yep. There we go. Some Kid Rock, perhaps. A little Kid Rock.
Kid Rock. Turning Point USA conferences, Erica Kirk, wrestling or whatever. I don't know.
Maybe some political events. What about a GOP primary event in the sphere? Can that is big enough? I don't know how big.
I don't think 6,000 seats is enough for a convention, but
yeah. Well, maybe Trump will demand that the sphere in Maryland gets to be even bigger than the one in Vegas, right? So that
maybe he'll get involved. Maybe he listens to CityCast and he will decide
if you're listening.
This is a great idea,
President Trump. We'd love to have you on the show. All right. Well, thank you both, Scott and April, for coming on the Friday News Roundup today.
It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Before we go, I have a couple of neighbor shout outs. Neighbors is our membership program. And one of the perks of membership is you, our neighbors, get to shout out your favorite local businesses and organizations. Shira A. has high praise for the Dale Etheridge Planetarium at the CSN North Las Vegas campus. She just went to the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon show there, which sounds amazing. And she says, not a lot of people know it's there and the staff is super cool and engaged. Shout out to the planetarium.
Yes.
And Jeffrey C. has a shout out for the Westminster Presbyterian Church of Las Vegas on Lake Mead in Decatur. He says, the church is a multiracial and diverse congregation with no money that literally feeds and clothes thousands of Las Vegas residents for free yearly, yet you have never heard about it unless you are poor. So shout out to those doing great work in our community.
Amen to that.
Thank you. All right. You can become a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. You'll get shout outs. You get a free events newsletter every week. You get access to members only events. Amazing perks. So head over to membership.citycast.fm. And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. Our executive producer is Layla Mohammed. Our roving producer is Zoe Culkin. Our newsletter editor is Rob Katchel-Reese. And I'm Sonia Cho Swanson, noble defender of the Las Vegas sphere. Music is by OG Moose, Epidemic Sound, and All the Kimonos. We record this show on the traditional homelands of the Nuwuvi, the Southern Paiute people. If you enjoyed the show, hey, go tell a friend. Rate the show, leave us a review, 5 stars please, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. Don't forget, you can support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Take care.